Part 1. The context behind the emergence of standard paper sizes. The development of standardized paper sizes, particularly the A series, did not occur spontaneously, nor did it result from a single act of innovation. Rather, it emerged as the product of numerous administrative, commercial, technological, and mathematical concerns that gradually coalesced over the course of centuries. Before any formal standardization could occur, paper usage across Europe and beyond was characterized by a notable lack of uniformity. This inconsistency extended across regions, printers, bureaucratic offices, and manufacturers. Consequently, to understand the emergence of the A-series paper system, one must first examine the various historical, practical, and intellectual developments that created the conditions for its eventual adoption. 1. Pre-standardization chaos in paper dimensions. Prior to the 20th century, paper sizes were largely determined by local custom, workshop tradition, and the capacities of papermaking equipment. In the hand press period, which spanned from the invention of printing in the 15th century through the early 19th century, sheets of paper were made by hand using a mold and decal. The dimensions of the paper were thus constrained by the size of the mold. As each workshop might have used a different mold size, the result was an enormous variety of paper dimensions. Sheets were often named rather than measured numerically, terms such as folio, quarto, crown, demi, and royal referred not to exact measurements, but to general categories of size that often differed slightly depending on the region or producer. In addition, the methods by which paper was folded after production or during printing further complicated size categorization. A full sheet folded once became a folio, twice became a quarto, and thrice an octavo, yet the final dimensions varied depending on the original sheet size. This folding-based system was logical within the printing industry but not conducive to administrative consistency. 2. The administrative and bureaucratic demand for uniformity. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the growing complexity of state bureaucracies, as well as expanding commercial networks, created a new and persistent need for uniformity in paper dimensions. Governments, increasingly involved in record-keeping, correspondence, and document production, required consistent formats to facilitate filing, storage, and referencing. Similarly, businesses operating across regions and international boundaries faced inefficiencies when invoices, contracts, and forms differed in size and format, often requiring transcription or modification. The Industrial Revolution exacerbated the situation by accelerating the production and circulation of printed and written material. The rise of mass education, commercial advertising, public administration, and journalism meant that paper usage became not merely localized or industry-specific, but societal in scale. The need for standardized paper dimensions, capable of being universally adopted, thus became increasingly urgent. 3. Technological developments in papermaking and printing. Alongside administrative pressures, technological advancements played a role in highlighting the need for standardization. The mechanization of papermaking in the early 19th century, particularly the development of the Fourdrinier machine, allowed for continuous rolls of paper to be produced and cut into sheets. This method enabled more consistent sizes to be produced at scale, but it also necessitated clear standards for cutting. At the same time, printing presses evolved to accommodate fixed-size paper trays and feeds. The introduction of typewriters and duplicating machines in the late 19th century further reinforced the need for standard page sizes that matched input and output specifications. Office equipment manufacturers began designing machines tailored to popular paper dimensions, creating a feedback loop where paper size influenced equipment design and vice versa. 4. Measurement systems and the rise of metrication. An additional factor complicating paper size consistency was the multiplicity of measurement systems in use during the 18th and 19th centuries. The imperial system, which employed inches and feet, coexisted with various local units of measure that varied not only from one country to another but sometimes even within the same country. These inconsistencies further obstructed efforts to create international standards. The rise of the metric system during the French Revolution introduced the possibility of universal measurement. Based on decimalized units and theoretically applicable across all domains, metrication was seen by reformers as a rational and scientific means of organizing the physical world. Though its adoption was uneven, particularly in the Anglo-American sphere, the metric system became the foundation upon which paper standardization would eventually be built. 5. Early efforts towards standardization. The first tentative steps towards standard paper sizes began not with governments or international bodies, but with individuals and institutions seeking practical solutions. Some printing houses and stationery suppliers began offering standardized formats based on common usage patterns. Yet these efforts remained partial and local. In France, during the late 18th and early 19th centuries, reformers proposed various paper size systems based on the metric system, though none achieved wide adoption. It was not until the early 20th century, in Germany, that a coherent, mathematically sound, and scalable paper size system would be proposed and implemented. However, even before this breakthrough, the growing discourse on rationalization, efficiency, and scientific management throughout the late 19th century set the intellectual stage for such developments. 6. Conceptualizing paper as a scalable format. The conceptual leap that would eventually lead to the A series involved reimagining paper not simply as a fixed product but as a scalable entity. If one could devise a single base size that, when folded or divided, retained proportional relationships, the entire paper supply chain, from manufacture to usage, could be streamlined. This required not just practical engineering, but abstract mathematical thinking. The question arose, could there be a base ratio such that each successive halving of a rectangle would preserve the same aspect ratio? The answer, as it turned out, lay in the square root of 2, or approximately 1.4142. A rectangle with sides in the ratio 1, square root 2, when cut or folded in half parallel to its shorter side, yields two smaller rectangles that are geometrically similar to the original, although the practical implications of this ratio would be realized only with the formalization of the A series. The idea that paper sizes could follow such rational principles marked a shift in thinking that moved beyond ad hoc sizing toward universal coherence. 7. Toward international consensus. By the early 20th century, the idea of international standards had gained increasing traction. The creation of professional societies, the rise of international exhibitions, and the growth of transnational commerce fostered a climate in which standardization was no longer merely desirable but essential. Paper size, seemingly mundane, was part of a broader trend in which railway gauges, screw threads, electrical voltages, and calendar formats were being brought into alignment across national boundaries. Institutions such as the International Electrotechnical Commission, founded 1906, and later the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, founded 1947, embodied this new ethos of standardization. Though paper size was only one among many domains addressed, it nonetheless exemplified the aspirations of an increasingly interconnected world, to render everyday transactions smoother, administrative processes more efficient, and production systems more predictable. Part 2. The mathematical basis of the 1 square root 2 ratio and its advantages. The adoption of the A series paper format is intimately tied to a specific mathematical principle, the use of a rectangular aspect ratio of 1 to the square root of 2, 1 square root 2. This ratio is neither arbitrary nor merely aesthetic. It is the result of careful consideration of how a piece of paper might best be divided, folded, resized, or scaled while preserving proportionality and functional consistency across a range of uses. To understand why this ratio was chosen above all others, one must examine both its mathematical properties and its practical applications in the realm of paper design, production, and usage. 1. Defining the 1 square root 2 ratio. The square root of 2, expressed as square root 2, is an irrational number that cannot be expressed as a simple fraction. Its decimal expansion begins with 1.414 and continues infinitely without repetition or termination. While this property may seem like a theoretical abstraction, the geometric characteristics of this ratio make it uniquely suited to the goal of scalable paper dimensions. The defining property of the 1 square root 2 rectangle is that when such a rectangle is divided into 2 equal halves along its shorter side, each half retains the same aspect ratio as the original. In other words, if a rectangle with sides A and B satisfies the condition that B/A equals square root 2, then cutting the rectangle in half parallel to the shorter side produces 2 smaller rectangles that also satisfy this ratio. This property does not hold true for most other rectangular ratios. For example, a 4:3 rectangle, when halved, results in a shape with a different ratio, no longer proportional to the original. Only the 1 square root 2 ratio guarantees that the original and the halved versions remain geometrically similar. 2. Mathematical demonstration of self-similarity. Let us consider a rectangle with width AAA and height BBB, where B/A equals 2, B/A equals SQRT, 2, B/A equals 2. If we cut this rectangle along its shorter side to produce 2 equal halves, the width of the new rectangle becomes B divided by 2, B divided by 2, B divided by 2. And the height remains AAA. We now examine the new aspect ratio. New ratio equals AB/2 equals 2 of text. New ratio equals frac A, B/2 equals frac 2A, B. New ratio equals B/2A equals B2A, but since B equals A2, B equals a SQRT, 2, B equals A2, we substitute to obtain 2AA2 equals 22 equals 2 frac 2A, a SQRT, 2 equals frac 2, SQRT, 2 equals SQRT, 2, A2, 2A equals 2, 2 is equal to 2, thus, the new rectangle retains the same 1 square root 2 aspect ratio. This recursive property of self-similarity makes the 1 square root 2 rectangle unique among all possible rectangles. It is precisely this feature that allows the A-series paper sizes to be constructed by simply having or doubling sheets while preserving proportional consistency. 3. Implications for design and scaling. The implications of this mathematical principle extend beyond mere curiosity. One of the chief benefits is that text, images, and layouts can be enlarged or reduced between paper sizes, say from A4 to A3 or A5, without distortion. A document printed on A4, for example, can be enlarged to A3 or reduced to A5 using standard photocopying machines set to 141% or 71% respectively. These percentages correspond directly to the factor square root 2 and its reciprocal. This predictability is particularly useful in administrative, academic, and technical environments, where documents are frequently photocopied, resized, or reformatted. Instructions, forms, and diagrams can be adapted across multiple sizes without requiring reformulation of content or layout. 4. Calculating dimensions of the A-series. The A-series of paper sizes is based on a single foundational size, A0. The A0 sheet has a surface area of exactly 1 square meter, and its dimensions are such that its width and height maintain the 1 square root 2 aspect ratio. Given this constraint, we can derive the dimensions as follows. Let the width be www and the height be hhh, such that h equals w2, h equals w sqrt 2, h equals w2 area equals w times h equals w times w2 equals w22 equals 1 text area equals w times h equals w times w sqrt 2 equals w squared sqrt 2 equals 1 area equals w times h equals w times w2 equals w22 equals 1, solving for www, w2 equals 12, w equals 12 equals 2 minus 1 slash 4 w caret 2 equals frac 1 sqrt 2, right arrow w equals sqrt frac 1 sqrt 2 equals 2 caret minus 1 quarter w2 equals 2 1 w equals 2 1 equals 2 minus 1 slash 4, thus, w is almost equal to 841 mm. H equals w2 is almost equal to 1189 mm. W approximate 841 text mm. Quad h equals w sqrt 2 approximate 1189 text mm. W is almost equal to 841 mm. H equals W2 almost equals 1189 mm. These values are rounded to the nearest millimeter. And each subsequent size in the A series is obtained by having the longer side of the previous size while keeping the shorter side constant. 5. Successive having and paper size designation. Each subsequent size in the A series, A1, A2, A3, and so on, is generated by successively having the preceding size along its longer dimension. For example, A0, 841 by 1189 mm, A1, 594 by 841 mm, A2, 420 by 594 mm, A3, 297 by 420 mm, A4, 210 by 297 mm, A5, 148 by 210 mm, A6, 105 by 148 mm, A7, 74 by 105 mm, A8, 52 by 74 mm, A9, 37 by 52 mm, A10, 26 by 37 mm. Each pair maintains the same 1 square root 2 ratio, allowing for consistent and predictable scaling across the entire series. 6. Simplifying paper usage across systems. The use of the 1 square root 2 ratio and the successive having model provide significant advantages in contexts where paper needs to be used in multiple forms. For example, a technical drawing printed on A2 can be reduced to A3 or A4 for distribution without requiring adjustment to margins or scale. Similarly, a booklet prepared on A5 can be printed on A4 and folded, preserving proportions precisely. In administrative contexts, this consistency reduces the complexity of paper handling, filing, and copying. Office printers, copiers, folders, and document trays can all be designed around this principle, ensuring interoperability across equipment and countries. 7. Reduction in waste and optimized material use. Another advantage of the 1 square root 2 system is its contribution to material efficiency. Paper sheets can be cut with minimal waste, as each cut produces 2 sheets of the next smaller size. This allows manufacturers to optimize the use of paper rolls or parent sheets, minimizing offcuts and simplifying inventory. For publishers, the ability to plan print runs using standardized dimensions means reduced trimming and less variation in print layout planning. Over time, this leads to cost savings, reduced environmental impact, and simplified logistics. 8. Integration with the metric system. The A series is fully integrated into the metric system, which itself is based on decimal increments and rational proportions. The fact that A0 is defined as having an area of exactly 1 square meter ensures that all other sizes are derived from this fixed, rational baseline. As a result, volume, weight, in grams per square meter, or GSM, and surface area calculations become trivial. For instance, if a sheet of A0 weighs 80 grams, assuming 80 GSM paper, then a sheet of A1 weighs 40 grams, A2 weighs 20 grams, and so forth. This uniformity simplifies the pricing, packaging, and transportation of paper products. 9. Influence on international standardization. The mathematical elegance of the 1√2 ratio ultimately played a central role in the decision to adopt it as the basis for ISO 216, the international standard that formalized the A-series. Its properties fulfilled the dual requirements of technical simplicity and global applicability. As nations adopted the metric system for weights and measures, they increasingly aligned with this format for paper as well. The 1√2 ratio thus became not merely a mathematical curiosity but a practical foundation for a global system of document handling. Part 3. The historical emergence of the A-series, Germany and DIN 476. The history of standardized paper sizes is not merely a matter of geometry or abstract mathematics, but also one of institutional development, national standardization, and pragmatic administrative reform. While the theoretical foundation for proportional rectangles had been explored in earlier centuries, it was not until the early 20th century that these ideas were systematically applied to the practical realm of paper manufacturing and document usage. This application took place most notably in Germany, a country which, during the early decades of the 20th century, undertook a series of reforms aimed at rationalizing industrial and bureaucratic practices. These reforms culminated in the formal adoption of a standardized paper size system known as DIN 476, which laid the groundwork for the internationally recognized ISO 216 standard. 1. The German context, efficiency, rationalization, and bureaucratic reform. In the decades surrounding the turn of the 20th century, Germany experienced profound industrial expansion, administrative growth, and educational reform. The German Empire, founded in 1871, was characterized by a dense network of regional governments, state agencies, and commercial institutions, each of which required increasing volumes of printed and written material. The need for efficiency in bureaucratic communication and industrial production spurred widespread interest in Normung, the German term for standardization. Organizations, engineers, and civil servants alike came to view standardization as a tool for reducing waste, increasing productivity, and facilitating coordination across sectors. Paper size, though seemingly trivial, emerged as one such domain where disparate practices hindered administrative and industrial efficiency. 2. Wilhelm Ostwald and early advocacy for proportional paper sizes. Among the earliest and most prominent advocates of proportional paper sizes in Germany was the scientist and Nobel laureate Wilhelm Ostwald, 1853 to 1932. A chemist by training, Ostwald was deeply involved in broader efforts to apply scientific rationality to daily life, education, and publishing. He promoted the idea of a universal paper size system based on a geometric principle, and recognized the unique properties of the 1√2 ratio. Ostwald's advocacy formed part of a larger intellectual movement known as Die Brücke, or the Bridge, a society founded in 1911 to promote standardization and rational design in all aspects of culture and production. The group sought to harmonize art, science, and technology by applying systematic thinking to forms and functions. Though Ostwald himself did not create the DIN standard, his theoretical work and public advocacy helped lay the intellectual groundwork for later institutional developments. 3. The founding of the Deutsches Institut für Normung, DN, the formalization of paper sizes in Germany was spearheaded by the Deutsches Institut für Normung, or DAN, which was established in 1917 under the name Normenausschuss der deutschen Industrie, Standardization Committee of German Industry. Its founding marked a major step in institutionalizing the practice of industrial standardization. DIN was tasked with developing consistent norms for technical and industrial processes. Initially focused on sectors such as engineering, rail transport, and manufacturing, it soon expanded its purview to include office supplies, writing materials, and document formats. The standardization of paper sizes thus became a natural extension of its mission. 4. Walter Postman and the formulation of DIN 476. The individual most directly responsible for the formulation of the A-series paper sizes was Walter Postman, 1886 to 1959, a German engineer and standardization expert. Postman recognized the utility of the 1√2 aspect ratio and proposed a system of paper sizes that was mathematically coherent, easily scalable, and suitable for widespread administrative and industrial use. In 1922, under Postman's leadership, DIN published the DIN 476 standard. This standard defined a series of paper sizes based on the 1√2 aspect ratio, beginning with a base size of 1 square meter, A0. Each subsequent size, A1, A2, A3, and so on, was derived by having the previous size along its longer dimension, producing a smaller rectangle that maintained the same proportions. 5. The structure and logic of DIN 476. DIN 476 did not only establish the A-series. It also defined related series known as B and C, which were designed for special uses such as envelopes and books. However, the A-series became the most widely adopted due to its utility in general document usage. The sizes defined in DIN 476 were as follows: A0, 841 by 1189 millimeters, 1 square meter; A1, 594 by 841 millimeters; A2, 420 by 594 millimeters; A3, 297 by 420 millimeters; A4, 210 by 297 millimeters; A5, 148 by 210 millimeters; A6, 105 by 148 millimeters; A7, 74 by 105 millimeters; A8, 52 by 74 millimeters; A9, 37 by 52 millimeters; A10, 26 by 37 millimeters. These dimensions were rounded to the nearest millimeter and ensured compatibility with metric weights and measures. For example, a sheet of A0 paper weighing 80 grams per square meter would weigh exactly 80 grams. 6. Practical benefits and early adoption. DIN 476 was rapidly adopted within German administrative and commercial institutions. Its benefits were immediately apparent: storage systems, filing cabinets, folders, printers, and duplicators could all be standardized around predictable paper sizes. Office supplies could be mass-produced without bespoke sizing. Documents could be scaled up or down without needing reformatting or reprinting. The printing industry also benefited. The proportional sizes allowed efficient layout of pages for magazines, books, and newspapers. Technical drawings and architectural plans could be consistently reproduced at different scales. Educational materials could be formatted uniformly. 7. Limitations and regional constraints. Despite its practicality, DIN 476 remained largely confined to Germany and a few neighboring countries for its first 2 decades. The spread of metric-based standards was still uneven during the interwar period. In countries like the United Kingdom and the United States, paper sizing continued to follow traditional formats based on inches, such as the letter and legal sizes in the United States, and imperial paper sizes in Britain. Nevertheless, DIN 476 served as a model for how a national standard could enhance administrative coherence, industrial efficiency, and international interoperability. 8. Expansion and endurance through global conflict. The interwar period was marked by political and economic instability, which somewhat limited the international spread of DIN 476. However, the underlying ideas remained resilient. During World War II, as Germany expanded its territorial influence, some occupied and allied countries adopted the DIN format for practical reasons, including easier document handling and alignment with German administration. After the war, the legacy of DIN 476 endured. In the late 1940s and 1950s, as countries began rebuilding their economies and public institutions, the benefits of metrication and standardization were increasingly recognized. 9. DIN 476 as the foundation for ISO 216. The ultimate vindication of DIN 476 came with the creation of the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, in 1947. Recognizing the practicality and mathematical soundness of the DIN paper format, the ISO adopted it almost without alteration as ISO 216 in 1975. Though DIN 476 had been a national standard, its influence became global through ISO 216, thus, DIN 476 is not merely a technical document. It is the historical cornerstone of the modern paper format system used across most of the world today. Part 4. The adoption of ISO 216. Toward international uniformity, the global standardization of paper sizes did not occur instantaneously nor through unilateral decree. Instead, it unfolded gradually, through a complex interplay of international cooperation, industrial pragmatism, and bureaucratic adaptation. The international adoption of the A-series paper format, originally codified as DIN 476 in Germany, culminated in the creation of ISO 216, an international standard which formalized the 1√2 paper size system as the global norm for document formatting across most of the world. The adoption process was marked by negotiation, technical harmonization, and institutional endorsement across diverse national contexts. 1. The rise of the International Organization for Standardization, ISO. Following the devastation of the Second World War, the need for global cooperation in economic, scientific, and industrial domains was widely recognized. A multitude of international institutions were created or revitalized to facilitate the reconstruction of economies and the standardization of commercial practices. Among these was the International Organization for Standardization, known by the acronym ISO, which was officially established in 1947. ISO was founded with the goal of promoting the development of international standards in order to facilitate trade, ensure compatibility between national systems, and reduce duplication of effort in industrial and scientific activity. Based in Geneva, Switzerland, the organization operated through technical committees composed of representatives from national standardization bodies. 2. ISO Technical Committee 6, Paper, Board, and Pulp. The issue of paper size standardization was assigned to Technical Committee 6, TC6, of ISO, which dealt with issues relating to paper, board, and pulp. The committee examined various national systems of paper sizes, among which the DIN 476 system stood out due to its widespread use in Germany and parts of Europe, as well as its mathematical consistency and adaptability. Committee members acknowledged that the DIN paper format, based on the 1√2 ratio and defined metric dimensions, provided a rational and scalable system that could serve as a model for international harmonization. 3. Proposal and drafting of ISO 216, beginning in the late 1960s and continuing through the early 1970s, TC6 worked to draft a formal international standard that would codify a universal set of paper sizes. The proposal centered on adopting the existing DIN 476 dimensions, while allowing for the potential coexistence of regional formats during transitional periods. The draft standard defined the A-series as the core of the system, with the B-series and C-series included as supplementary formats, particularly for printing and envelopes, respectively. Dimensions were provided in millimeters and rounded to the nearest whole number to ensure compatibility with existing machinery and manufacturing practices. 4. Formal publication of ISO 216 in 1975, after years of consultation and deliberation, the International Organization for Standardization officially published ISO 216 in 1975. The standard specified the dimensions and properties of the A-series paper sizes, starting with A0 as 1 square meter in area, and progressing through successive halvings to A10. The standard also acknowledged the continued use of non-metric paper sizes in some countries, but encouraged international convergence toward the A-series format as a means of achieving greater uniformity in global commerce and communication. 5. International adoption and legal recognition. Following its publication, ISO 216 was gradually adopted by national standards bodies across much of the world. The timeline of adoption varied from country to country, influenced by existing practices, industry preferences, and governmental mandates. Most European countries, already using DIN 476 or similar formats, adopted ISO 216 with little difficulty. Asian countries, including Japan, South Korea, and China, incorporated ISO 216 into their national standards, sometimes alongside their own traditional formats. African and South American nations, often influenced by European administrative models, also adopted ISO 216, either directly or as part of broader metrication programs. Australia and New Zealand adopted the ISO 216 standard in the 1970s and 1980s, aligning their office systems with international norms. Adoption typically involved updating national laws, technical standards, educational guidelines, and commercial specifications. In many countries, ISO 216 became legally binding for public institutions, school curricula, and government printing offices. 6. Resistance and non-adoption. The case of the United States and Canada. Despite the international trend toward adoption, some countries, most notably the United States and Canada, chose not to adopt ISO 216 as their national standard. These countries continued to use traditional formats such as letter, 8.5 by 11 inches, legal, 8.5 by 14 inches, and tabloid, 11 by 17 inches, based on imperial measurements. The reasons for non-adoption included historical inertia, as industries, offices, and equipment were already standardized around existing formats, cost of transition, involving the replacement of office equipment, stationery, and filing systems, lack of perceived benefit, as there was minimal domestic demand for change and little international pressure to adopt the ISO standard. Nevertheless, some sectors within the United States, especially in scientific publishing and international trade, did adopt ISO 216 voluntarily for purposes of compatibility and export. 7. Practical consequences of ISO 216 adoption. The adoption of ISO 216 brought about significant practical benefits across adopting countries: simplification of office procedures, with predictable scaling between sizes facilitating copying, printing, and document management, harmonization of manufacturing, allowing global paper producers to operate with fewer production lines and standard packaging, improved international communication, as documents sent across borders required less adaptation or resizing, integration with metrication, aligning paper sizes with other metric-based systems for weight, GSM, volume, and area. These benefits were especially pronounced in multinational companies, educational institutions, and government bureaucracies, where document interchange and consistency were critical. 8. ISO 216 and related standards. In addition to ISO 216, a series of related ISO standards were developed to support paper usage, including ISO 217, specifying tolerances for trimming and squareness, ISO 269, defining sizes for envelopes designed to hold A-series paper, ISO 536, specifying grammage, paper density in grams per square meter, ISO 186, concerning moisture content in paper and board. These complementary standards created a comprehensive framework for the manufacture, handling, and use of paper in professional and industrial contexts. 9. Evolution and endurance of the ISO 216 standard. Since its adoption, ISO 216 has remained remarkably stable. Minor revisions have been made to clarify tolerances, update terminology, and align definitions, but the basic dimensions and principles have not changed. The endurance of ISO 216 reflects the enduring utility of the 1/√2 ratio and the success of the original DIN 476 system. More than 40 years after its international adoption, ISO 216 remains the de facto global paper size standard outside North America. 10. Symbolic and practical importance. Beyond its technical attributes, ISO 216 symbolizes the success of international collaboration in the service of standardization. It represents a triumph of logic and geometry in the structuring of everyday objects and processes. It also exemplifies how rational design, when institutionalized and adopted widely, can have a lasting impact on global systems of communication and documentation. Today, the ISO A-series paper sizes, especially A4, are ubiquitous in government offices, schools, businesses, and homes. The sheets we write on, print on, and file away daily are the product of nearly a century of thought, design, and coordination. Part 5, the B-series, C-series, and the extended ISO paper size families, while the A-series paper sizes, particularly A4, have become globally dominant in everyday office and administrative usage. The broader system established under DIN 476 and later ISO 216 includes additional paper size families, specifically the B-series and the C-series. These supplementary series were not conceived merely as alternatives to the A-series but were designed to serve specialized, complementary functions. Each series is based on geometric principles related to the A-series dimensions, intended to ensure interoperability while accommodating the practical needs of printing, publishing, mailing, and design. The expansion of paper size classification beyond the A-series reflects the complexity of documentation, publishing, and communication systems. It provides formats suitable for intermediate sizes, envelopes, and larger print products, thereby ensuring a comprehensive framework for paper usage across a range of industries. 1. The purpose of multiple series. The A-series, based on a size of 1 square meter for A0 and successively halved dimensions, provides a versatile and mathematically elegant sequence suitable for most everyday documents. However, certain contexts require paper sizes that are either larger than A0 but not double in both dimensions, intermediate between A-series sizes, slightly larger than an A size to serve as a cover or envelope, better suited to books, posters, or architectural drawings. To meet these requirements, the B-series and C-series were developed, using the same 1/√2 aspect ratio for compatibility, but with base sizes and scaling principles designed to fill the gaps and address additional use cases. 2. The B-series, intermediate sizes and international documents. The B-series was conceived as a system of intermediate paper sizes between corresponding A-series sizes. Instead of being derived by halving or doubling like the A-series, the B-series is based on the geometric mean of 2 consecutive A-series sizes. For example, B1 is the geometric mean between A0 and A1, B2 is the geometric mean between A1 and A2, and so on. This results in paper sizes that are approximately 1.41 times larger than the next smaller A size, and approximately 1.19 times larger than the corresponding A size. The B-series sizes are defined as follows: B size, dimensions, B0, 1000 by 1414, B1, 707 by 1000, B2, 500 by 707, B3, 353 by 500, B4, 250 by 353, B5, 176 by 250, B6, 125 by 176, B7, 88 by 125, B8, 62 by 88, B9, 44 by 62, B10, 31 by 44. 3. Applications of the B series. The B series has not achieved the same ubiquity as the A series, but it is commonly used in certain contexts, including books. B5 is a common format for academic texts and compact publications, posters, and wall charts. B0 and B1 provide large format areas with less waste than A0, passports. Many countries use B7 or variants thereof for passport pages and covers. Printing. Some printers and publishers use B sizes for intermediate documents or to accommodate bleed and trimming requirements. The B series provides greater flexibility in publication and layout planning, especially when a size is required that is not efficiently served by the doubling/halving sequence of the A series. 4. The C series, envelopes and enclosures. The C series was specifically designed for use with envelopes and folders, to ensure that documents printed on A series paper could be enclosed neatly without excessive folding or excess space. The C series sizes are the geometric means between A series and B series sizes of the same number. For example, C4 is the geometric mean between A4 and B4. This means that an A4 sheet of paper fits comfortably into a C4 envelope, and a C4 envelope fits comfortably inside a B4 envelope. The dimensions of the C series are as follows. C size, dimensions, C0, 917 by 1297, C1, 648 by 917, C2, 458 by 648, C3, 324 by 458, C4, 229 by 324, C5, 162 by 229, C6, 114 by 162, C7, 81 by 114, C8, 57 by 81, C9, 40 by 57, C10, 28 by 40. 5. Common envelope practices and the C series. The C series is widely used in stationery and postal systems around the world. For example, C4 envelopes are used to send A4 documents unfolded. C5 envelopes are used to send A5 documents or A4 sheets folded in half. C6 envelopes fit A6 documents or A4 sheets folded twice. DL, dimension lengthwise. Envelopes are a common commercial format, designed to fit an A4 sheet folded into thirds. Though technically outside the ISO series, DL is often treated alongside C series envelopes. By maintaining the 1/√2 ratio, the C series ensures that inserts and enclosures retain the same proportional relationships, allowing printers, folders, and mailing systems to operate with maximum efficiency. 6. Comparison among series. It is useful to understand the proportional relationships between A, B, and C sizes. A4 is equal to 210 by 297 millimeters, B4 is equal to 250 by 353 millimeters, C4 is equal to 229 by 324 millimeters. Thus, A4 fits inside C4. C4 fits inside B4. This cascading compatibility extends throughout the series, enabling nesting and enclosure to function seamlessly across sizes. 7. Additional paper standards related to ISO 216. While ISO 216 defines the core dimensions, several related standards support the full paper handling process. ISO 217 sets tolerances for size deviations and trimming accuracy. ISO 269, now withdrawn, provided alternative envelope sizes that remain in legacy use. ISO 5457 defines paper sizes for technical drawings with fixed borders and title blocks. ISO 219 and ISO 216 AMD variants provide special tolerances or adaptation methods. Together, these standards ensure that paper products not only conform to correct dimensions but also behave predictably in equipment, postal handling, and physical filing systems. 8. Regional variations and partial adoption. Despite the comprehensiveness of the A, B, and C series, actual usage varies between countries and regions. For example, Japan has a modified JISB series, based on slightly different arithmetic means, resulting in marginally different dimensions. North America continues to use non-metric sizes, but some international business and academic sectors have adopted A4 and associated sizes for compatibility. Russia historically used JIST standards, some of which have been harmonized with ISO over time. Nevertheless, in countries that have fully adopted ISO 216, the A, B, and C series provide a complete and predictable ecosystem for paper sizing. 9. Practical considerations in printing and layout. Printers, copiers, and digital design tools often incorporate A, B, and C series sizes into default settings. The consistent aspect ratio simplifies layout scaling, and standardized margins can be built into templates. For example, printing a full-page A4 image on an A3 sheet results in perfect scaling by a factor of 2. This allows easy enlargement or reduction of documents without distortion. In publishing, the use of B5 or A5 for books, and A3 for magazines or technical drawings, ensures consistent pagination, legibility, and efficient paper usage. 10. Enduring utility of the extended series, the extended ISO paper size families. While perhaps less familiar to the general public than A4, serve as the invisible infrastructure that supports a wide range of document handling tasks. They facilitate smooth transitions between paper formats, efficient storage and mailing, and consistent design principles. The B series and C series are not secondary in importance, but integral components of a rational system that prioritizes flexibility, modularity, and predictability. In this way, the legacy of DIN 476 continues to inform and shape modern document practices around the globe. Part 6. The persistence of non-ISO paper sizes, imperial formats and regional holdouts. Although the ISO 216 standard, based on the A series and its related B and C series paper sizes, has achieved widespread adoption across much of the globe, particularly in countries that have transitioned to the metric system, a significant number of non-ISO paper formats continue to persist. These legacy formats, often referred to as imperial, national, or customary sizes, remain in use in various professional, administrative, and cultural contexts, especially in regions where metrication was delayed, partial, or resisted. The endurance of these alternative formats is not merely a matter of national tradition or institutional inertia, but rather reflects the complex interplay of economic systems, legacy infrastructure, typesetting technologies, and historically entrenched standardization bodies. This part will examine the various systems that have endured alongside ISO formats, with particular focus on British imperial paper sizes, North American customary formats, and other regional standards, including those in Japan, China, and Russia. 1. The British imperial paper size system. Prior to the adoption of the A series in the United Kingdom, British paper sizes followed an elaborate imperial system that originated in the 17th and 18th centuries. These sizes were used for book publishing, legal documents, stationery, and commercial printing. They were based on specific sheet sizes of handmade or machine-made paper and were named according to traditional terms. Examples of traditional British sizes include name, inches, millimeters, approximate, foolscap, 8 by 13, 203 by 330, quarto, 9 by 12, 229 by 305, Demi, 17.5 by 22.5. for 45 by 572, Royal, 20 by 25, 508 by 635, Double Crown, 20 by 30, 508 by 762, Elephant, 23 by 28, 584 by 711. These sizes often served as raw sheets for folding into smaller formats. For instance, a full royal sheet folded once would yield a folio size, while a quarto involved folding it twice. Books were commonly categorized by the number of folds: folio, quarto, octavo, duodecimo, and so on. The imperial system persisted well into the 20th century in British publishing and education, particularly for ledger paper and legal pads. The foolscap folio size, approximately 8.5 by 13 inches, was especially prevalent for legal documents. Even after the UK's gradual adoption of ISO sizes following metrication initiatives beginning in the 1960s and 1970s, remnants of these formats continue to appear in office supply catalogs. Printer defaults and archival holdings. 2. North American paper sizes. North America, primarily the United States and Canada, continues to use a set of standard paper sizes that differ significantly from ISO formats. These sizes are defined by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, and were established by commercial practice and administrative tradition rather than mathematical proportion. The most commonly used size in the United States is letter, 8.5 by 11 inches, 216 by 279 millimeters. Other standard sizes include legal, 8.5 by 14, 216 by 356, tabloid, 11 by 17, 279 by 432, ledger, 17 by 11, 432 by 279, executive, 7.25 by 10.5, 184 by 267. These paper sizes lack the 1/√2 aspect ratio that characterizes ISO paper. As a result, they do not scale proportionally when folded or enlarged. For example, doubling a U.S. letter sheet results in a size that does not match any standard format, making reproduction, filing, and enlargement more cumbersome. Despite this inefficiency, the U.S. letter format remains dominant in American offices, legal institutions, and educational systems. Efforts to introduce A4 paper, particularly for international correspondence and academia, have met limited success, with A4 paper often being used only in specific cross-border contexts. 3. The ANSI and ARCH series. In an attempt to bring some standardization and scaling ability to paper formats, ANSI developed a series of paper sizes designated by letters A through E, loosely based on architectural needs. ANSI size, inches, usage, A, 8.5 by 11, standard letter, B, 11 by 17, tabloid, C, 17 by 22, engineering, D, 22 by 34, large drawings, E, 34 by 44, blueprints. These sizes double in area, but not in aspect ratio. A related set, the ARCH series, was developed for architectural drawings, using ratios closer to 4:3 or 3:2, preferred in design work. The continued use of both ANSI and ARCH paper sizes is largely supported by the embedded nature of printing equipment, document management systems, and drawing standards used in engineering and architecture firms. 4. The Japanese JIS formats. Japan officially uses the ISO 216 paper formats, but it also maintains a unique JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard, B series, which differs slightly from the ISO B series. The JIS B series sizes are calculated by a different method, using arithmetic rather than geometric means, resulting in slightly larger dimensions. For example, ISO B5 is equal to 176 by 250 millimeters, JSB5 is equal to 182 by 257 mm. JSB5 is widely used for notebooks, writing pads, and books in Japan. The coexistence of JIS and ISO sizes in Japan has led to dual standard manufacturing processes, particularly in the stationery and publishing sectors. 5. Chinese and Taiwanese paper sizes. China officially adopted ISO 216 in the 1980s, but non-standard paper sizes remain in circulation. These include adaptations of the traditional Chinese paper sizes historically used in calligraphy and state printing. Taiwan similarly adopted ISO standards but retained customary paper sizing for older documents. For instance, the Chinese size 16K, approximately 195 by 270 mm, continues to be used for books and exercise books. While metric in naming, its proportions differ from ISO formats and reflect legacy sizing conventions from the ROC and pre-SO printing standards. 6. Soviet and Russian JST formats. The Soviet Union adopted a modified form of ISO paper sizing under the JST state standard system. While largely compatible with ISO 216, certain dimensions and tolerances varied slightly. After the collapse of the USSR, Russia and other post-Soviet states continued using JST standards for some time before gradually aligning with ISO norms. Some Soviet-era technical and engineering documentation used specific paper formats for drawings, including Format A1A, a horizontally extended form of A1, Format A0A, for long schematics requiring width over height. These formats were tailored for blueprinting, schematic drafting, and technical report preparation in large industrial sectors. 7. Regional holdouts and cultural persistence. Despite growing globalization, some paper formats persist due to deep cultural or institutional inertia. Examples include India. While officially metric, India still uses foolscap terminology and legacy sizing in courts and education. Philippines, legal and official documents often use 8.5 by 13-inch paper, termed long bond paper. Mexico, the carta size, similar to US. Letter, remains prevalent, despite official efforts to promote A4. In these regions, both ISO and non-ISO formats coexist, often confusingly, leading to issues with printing, filing, and international document exchange. 8. Practical challenges of coexisting formats. The use of multiple paper standards causes several logistical problems. Printers and copiers must support multiple tray sizes. Software must provide a variety of page setups and margin presets. Filing systems must be adaptable to more than one aspect ratio. International correspondence risks formatting errors and clipping. These practical limitations are particularly evident in multinational operations, where correspondence between an A4 using Office and a letter using Office may result in formatting issues or document truncation. 9. Attempts at harmonization. International standardization bodies, including ISO and IEC, have encouraged harmonization through policy recommendations, transitional guidelines, and outreach to standards institutions. Nevertheless, full unification remains elusive due to high conversion costs in North America, deep integration of legacy sizes in bureaucratic systems, resistance from industry stakeholders with entrenched supply chains. As a result, paper formats continue to reflect a patchwork of historic developments, national choices, and administrative defaults. 10. Conclusion. A divided landscape of paper dimensions. Despite the elegance and efficiency of ISO 216's proportional system, the persistence of non-ISO paper formats underscores the enduring power of historical practice, economic path dependency, and institutional continuity. While ISO sizes dominate international printing, publishing, and office work, regional standards such as ANSI, British Imperial, and JIS continue to influence design, manufacturing, and documentation in important ways. As of today, humanity operates with at least 3 major parallel paper size systems: the ISO system used by the vast majority of countries, the ANSI/Imperial system used in the United States and Canada, and legacy or hybrid systems in select regions such as Japan, China, India, and Russia. This fractured approach to paper sizing remains one of the more enduring technical divergences in a world increasingly shaped by global standards. Part 7: The Digital Age and the Future of Paper Sizing. In the transition from analog to digital information systems, the relevance of physical paper formats might appear to diminish. Yet, despite the proliferation of electronic communication, word processing, and digital storage technologies, the continued production, consumption, and archiving of printed documents suggests that the significance of paper sizing has not been entirely obviated. This installment examines the evolution of paper sizing in the digital age, the persistence of format-based constraints in electronic workflows, and the gradual yet uneven redefinition of document standards within increasingly digital bureaucracies. Institutions and personal habits. 1. Digitization and the role of standard paper sizes. The integration of desktop publishing and personal computing into offices during the late 20th century did not immediately eliminate the importance of paper. Instead, early digital systems were designed to replicate, as precisely as possible, the paper-based workflows they were intended to supplement or replace. Page layout software, such as Adobe PageMaker, Quark Express, and Microsoft Word, relied heavily on predefined paper templates, which in turn necessitated default page sizes like A4, US letter, and others. Printers, scanners, and photocopiers were similarly constructed around these fixed formats. The reliance on WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get, interfaces reinforced the centrality of paper sizes, because users continued to expect that what was visible on the screen would correspond exactly to what emerged from a printer. As such, even in digital document production, ISO and non-ISO paper dimensions persisted as invisible but ever-present structuring forces. 2. The rise of the PDF and paper format simulation. The introduction of the portable document format, PDF, by Adobe in 1993 provided a means of preserving document fidelity across systems and devices. Crucially, PDFs embed the intended paper size within the file structure, allowing the document to retain its formatting regardless of hardware or software differences. The most commonly used dimensions in PDFs remain A4, 210 by 297 mm, letter, 8.5 by 11 inches, legal, 8.5 by 14 inches. Though PDFs are not printed by default, their design still assumes a physical medium. Headers, footers, margins, and pagination are dictated by standardized dimensions. Thus, the very architecture of digital documentation continues to reflect and depend on legacy paper sizing paradigms. 3. Office suites and default paper settings. Software environments like Microsoft Office, Google Docs, and LibreOffice come pre-configured with default paper sizes. These defaults vary by region. For example, in the United States, Microsoft Word defaults to US letter. In the UK, Canada, English-speaking provinces, and Australia, the default is typically A4. In Japan, the JISB5 size may be present in some localized software versions. Changing these defaults requires manual intervention, and many users remain unaware of the discrepancies until encountering layout errors, page breaks in unexpected places, or truncated margins. These persistent defaults reveal the extent to which paper sizes are embedded not only in institutional practices but also in software design logic. 4. Digital bureaucracy and paper as formal record, government and legal systems. even when offering digital submission of forms and applications, continue to rely on fixed-size PDF documents. Tax forms, immigration applications, and regulatory disclosures are frequently designed to align with standard printed dimensions. Archival systems similarly maintain paper-size distinctions, especially when scanning legacy documents or printing official correspondence. The requirement to submit documents in A4 format or on letter-size paper persists even in processes that never culminate in physical printing. This suggests that paper sizing functions not only as a spatial constraint but also as a marker of officiality and formatting discipline. 5. The persistence of paper in academic and educational contexts. Academic institutions have been slow to abandon paper-based conventions. Thesis formatting guidelines, conference submissions, and journal article templates continue to specify exact dimensions for printed output, even when documents are submitted and reviewed entirely online. Margins, font size, line spacing, and page breaks are calibrated against paper sizes such as A4 or US letter. Standardized testing materials, such as SATs, ACTs, and international assessments, likewise conform to fixed paper dimensions. Answer sheets and exam booklets are physically printed, requiring strict adherence to reproducible formats. In many educational institutions, assignment submission rules explicitly dictate paper sizes. Students are instructed to submit printed essays on A4 paper or to use letter-sized pages for fill-in-the-blank worksheets. These rules persist despite the increasing ubiquity of learning management systems, LMS, like Canvas, Moodle, and Blackboard. 6. The role of print-on-demand and paper format compatibility. The emergence of print-on-demand, POD, services, including Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing and Ingram Spark, further reinforces the relevance of paper sizing in digital contexts. Authors uploading manuscripts are required to select from predefined trim sizes. These trim sizes often align with ISO or US paper formats. Common options include 6 inches by 9 inches, 152 by 229 millimeters, A5, 148 by 210 millimeters, 5.5 inches by 8.5 inches, 140 by 216 millimeters. Margins, bleed allowances, and spine width are calculated based on these standard dimensions. As such, even self-published digital books are formatted to paper-centric criteria, with precise cut sizes determining the layout and typesetting of text blocks. 7. E-readers, tablets, and the simulation of page-based design. Despite the advent of e-readers and tablets, many digital reading interfaces simulate traditional paper pages. E-books retain the concept of pagination, even though continuous scroll is technically simpler to implement. PDFs viewed on tablets maintain margins and page sizes based on traditional formats, even EPUB formats, while more flexible, include CSS-based layout rules that approximate the visual order of print. Publishers often design ebooks with reference to a physical page size, converting from print-ready InDesign files to reflowable digital content. In academic and legal e-reading, scanned documents presented as PDFs reproduce the visual structure of original paper sheets, complete with markings, annotations, and imprints. These digital surrogates perpetuate the influence of paper sizing conventions into the virtual domain. 8. Printers, scanners, and hardware design constraints. Office and home printers are built to accommodate specific paper sizes. Feed trays, rollers, and detection sensors are calibrated to A4, US letter, legal, and sometimes A3 or tabloid. Multifunction printers and copiers rely on size detection to align print areas and avoid jamming. Scanners similarly rely on size presets for resolution and cropping functions. This hardware standardization imposes practical limitations on paper size adoption. Even if digital documents were to abandon fixed dimensions, the physical act of printing or scanning necessitates alignment with legacy sizes. As such, hardware perpetuates paper format conventions through design constraints. 9. Environmental considerations and the push toward paperless systems. The environmental movement has emphasized reducing paper usage, advocating for digital communication and storage. This has led to initiatives such as e-signatures, digital invoices, and cloud-based filing systems. Nonetheless, paper formats remain embedded in the logic of file generation. For example, electronic invoices and purchase orders may be sent as PDFs, still formatted to A4. Scanned receipts submitted for reimbursement must match a given dimension or file size, often adhering to the printed form size. Sustainability policies have not yet replaced the dominance of A-series or ANSI paper in the generation of document templates. Thus, while physical paper consumption may decline, the logic of its sizing persists in digital representations. 10. Cross-platform compatibility and paper size conflicts. The globalization of office workflows has introduced challenges of paper size compatibility. A document formatted in A4 may not print correctly on a US letter printer, leading to bottom margins being cut off. Conversely, a US letter document may appear too short on an A4 layout, disrupting visual alignment. Email attachments and document sharing often cause such issues, particularly in collaborative editing environments. To address this, some multinational corporations standardize to one format, usually A4, requiring employees in letter-using regions to adjust printers or templates accordingly. Cloud-based tools like Google Docs now attempt to abstract away from specific dimensions. But the moment of printing reintroduces paper size conflicts. These cross-platform discrepancies continue to highlight the hidden infrastructure of format-specific design embedded in modern office work. 11. The limits of paperless ideals. Despite predictions of a paper